morning, everyone. It's Sunday, February 12th. Congressman Jay Cochran-Klaus is here with us this morning. Let's go on the record. Now, in his second term on Capitol Hill, he has been named to a select committee on China, and at a critical time. He's also talking AI to the House floor. What more can we expect? The congressman's in the chair. He's here this morning. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Charmin Circetti. It's great to have you with us this morning, and we're pleased to have Congressman Jay Cochran-Klaus with us at the table. As you can see, Democrat from Newton, representing the state's 4th congressional district, elected to a second term last November. He is a Marine, commanding infantry in Afghanistan in 2012, also holds degrees from Harvard and MIT. It's great to see you, sir. Thanks for your time.
Good to be with you as always.
Is it too late to say Happy New Year? Or
no,
is it,
you can say it all year.
Because it's the first time we've seen it, so Happy New Year.
To you as well.
Welcome. So let's start with China. You've been named to a select committee on China, and this comes at a critical moment. We're still unpacking the information that came from the China spy balloon. Shooting it down was one thing. Finding out how much intel China had gathered is another. Now, this is obviously no small incursion. How hard do you think the U.S. should hit back on this?
I think the president has responded appropriately, as a statesman should. He had 3 objectives when that balloon violated American airspace. Number 1, uphold the sovereignty of U.S. airspace. He did that by shooting it down. Number 2, maximize counterintelligence opportunities by jamming it and then recovering the sensitive assets. And then number 3, of course, protect property and lives on the ground. Nobody was injured. This was a strong show by the commander-in-chief.
Do you think that he waited too long to take that steps? That's been the criticism from the other side.
No, I don't. And that goes into number 2, which was maximize counterintelligence opportunities. It actually is valuable to be able to see how it operates and to be able to jam it and see it in action and then be able to recover it over water where we have a higher likelihood of actually getting the sensitive surveillance assets themselves.
What does this say about China's President Xi, that he would do something so in your face like this?
It underscores that the CCP is increasingly aggressive, and the urgency of this select committee, which I'm really excited to be a part of. It's a generational opportunity for us to chart sound strategy that rises above day-to-day partisan politics and really looks at how do we outcompete what is going to be the biggest geopolitical adversary for the United States in the 21st century.
So to be clear, you feel that that the United States shot it down appropriately, waiting until it got off the coast of Carolina, rather than taking it out in Alaska or Montana or anywhere along the way?
I do. With the information we have right now, I do think the commander-in-chief handled it effectively. Now, listen, I was a lieutenant, a captain, a major. You learn that every mission has an after-action after the mission. And this should have an after-action review as well, where everyone takes their ranks off and you look at the information you have, and if things need to be improved, then we should improve them. And that shouldn't be partisan. That should be about national security.
We're talking about Xi and Putin of Russia. They've struck a closer relationship since the invasion of Ukraine. With the 1-year anniversary of the war approaching, do you see any prospects for de-escalation?
Right now, the United States needs to continue to stand with Ukrainians as they fight on the front lines of the free world. This is about sending a stark message to the authoritarian regime in the Kremlin and in Beijing and in Tehran and elsewhere that the United States stands on the side of freedom and democracy. Our investment in Ukrainians has paid dividends for the rules-based order that we helped architect after World War II. It has helped strengthen NATO and our alliances with East Asia. And it has cratered 1/3 to 1/2 of conventional Russian military capacity while increasing the domestic defense spending of our allies. This has been a positive for global security for the free world. And yet, we do need to find a way to bring this to a peaceful conclusion. But the facts on the ground need to drive the negotiations at the bargaining table. And right now, the Ukrainians are still trying to change the facts on the ground.
All right. Well, let's get your thoughts on the State of the Union. President Biden went heavy on domestic issues. The economy notched a major win by turning the tables on Republicans looking to cut Social Security and Medicare. Is the president's focus on issues at home the right strategy right now?
Yes, it was a positive, optimistic speech. And his focus on issues at home, I think, is appropriate because let's wind back the clock 2 years and remember where we were. He took office with the worst crisis in our democracy since the Civil War. I mean, we're talking about China. Xi Jinping's best day was January 6, 2021. He took office with, of course, a public health catastrophe. He took office with a very challenging economic situation. These were fundamentally problems domestically with the United States, and we have made such progress in those last 2 years. We've invested in infrastructure, science, manufacturing. We have passed Electoral Count Act reform to prevent a repeat of January 6th. We have gotten tough on Russia and other authoritarian actors. The president had a lot to talk about in this State of the Union.
Do you think it's resonating with the American public? A recent poll showed most people don't think he's done enough.
I think the contrast is resonating with the American public. What we saw was a president who said, here's what we've done, let's finish the job, who extended his hand to bipartisan collaboration, and he got booed and jeered in return.
Well, let's talk about that. The Republicans who heckled him during the State of the Union, you know, that was sort of a contentious start to this year. What are you seeing on the ground in the House?
What I'm seeing on the ground in the House is that the House GOP says, we care about the deficit and we're going to get serious about spending. So what do? The very first bill that they pass increases the deficit by $100 billion while allowing the wealthy and well-connected to evade taxes. They then take hostage the full faith and credit of the United States by saying they're not going to raise the debt limit ceiling, which they did multiple times for Donald Trump. But they don't present a coherent plan forward. Kevin McCarthy says, well, listen, I'm not cutting this, or this. I'm not going to raise taxes. Well, I mean, math is a cruel thing. It actually, you have to be able to present a plan forward. Hasn't done it. So President Biden has said, come to me with a budget and we'll negotiate. And instead, all they know how to do is boo and jeer. And so I think it was, while distressing for someone who cares about the decorum of the House, actually important for Americans to see live themselves what the president as a statesman has to work with. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that we can't get bipartisan wins. I look at gun safety last Congress, Electoral Count Act reform, infrastructure.
But you think those interactions were important for the American public to see?
Absolutely, because it demonstrates where the GOP is heading if they don't fix themselves. They have an authoritarian wing that is not interested in governing. They're interested in performing for their base. And we have Joe Biden, who has gotten real wins, who wants to finish the job, and is willing to work in good faith.
In many ways, those jeers, the president almost used it as fuel. He didn't seem to be frightened, shaken at all, adverse to it. He confronted it.
Agreed.
And he got consensus on the floor.
Well, that was the amazing thing. Is it's worth noting where the GOP got angriest, right? It wasn't over sort of the culture war stuff. It was over his assertions, factual, I will say, that they want to cut Social Security and Medicare. And then I think it'll hit a little too close to home, and they got very upset. And he said, well, good, we're agreed then. We're going to protect Social Security and Medicare for generations to come.
It was pretty good real-time processing. So let's talk about the world we're in, high tech. So you made headlines everywhere when you delivered a speech on the House floor about a bill that would create a U.S.-Israel Artificial Intelligence Center. Now, here is the speech. Take a look at it.
We must collaborate with international partners like the Israeli government to ensure that the United States maintains a leadership role in AI research and development and responsibly explores the many possibilities evolving technologies provide.
Now, in every way, shape, manner, and form, it's just a typical speech on the floor of the House, but it was generated by the online AI chatbot ChatGPT. So, why did you choose to take this up this way, and what have been the ripple effects? What's been the reaction to it?
I wanted to start a conversation in Congress about this technology. I am the youngest parent in the Democratic caucus. This technology is going to be a general purpose technology for my kids going forward. I worked in the tech sector for years before coming to Congress. I've been keeping a close eye on it, and I saw over the last 18 months that we're hitting an inflection point where this is getting really good really fast. And Congress cannot allow AI to get ahead of us the way we did social media. We can all think back to 2005, 2010, when these social media companies were small and scrappy, and then they grew so fast, they got rich so fast, they took over our discourse in a way that I think, on reflection, we wanted more say over. AI has that same potential. It's a tool, can be used for good or for ill, but policymakers need to be purposeful and proactive about putting the guidelines in place.
All right, and so we have another tech question that takes us back to China. Do you think TikTok, which is hugely popular here in the U.S., should be banned?
I'm concerned about TikTok. We need to do a full investigation. The Chinese Communist Party absolutely has a vein of data coming from TikTok that is potentially scraping Americans' personal networks.
So it should be banned?
I think we need an investigation. I'm not willing to slap the table yet, but I'm deeply skeptical. And on the other point, too, I may even be more concerned, which is its effect on kids' emotional and cognitive development. Are we all sure that we want 12, 13, 14-year-olds swiping videos for hours on end? I don't think so.
Congressman Jay Cochran-Clausen is with us. We're on the record. Stay with us.